The Sega Master System has a very interesting library of games, and Action Fighter definitely falls into this category. At first glance, this game looks like a Spy Hunter clone, and there's good reason to think that. Sega published a lot of games for the Master System specifically to recreate the experience of a game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. For instance, Alex Kidd in Miracle World was their action platformer answer to Super Mario Bros., Golden Axe Warrior was their Legend of Zelda style game, RC Grand Prix was a clone of RC Pro-Am, and so on. So you might think that this game was Sega's answer to Spy Hunter. But while Spy Hunter was a 1983 arcade game, the NES port was actually released in August of 1987, while Action Fighter was released in October of 1986, almost a year earlier. Also, the Spy Hunter-inspired sections are only one of many styles of gameplay that you'll find in this game. There's also vertically scrolling shooter sections that resemble Xevious, an arcade game by Namco, and boss fights that remind me of the boss fights in Jackal from Konami. This game probably doesn't get much attention due to the fact that the title is very generic. It's only more slightly creative than calling it video game. The box art probably didn't help sell it well either. I mean, if you saw this on the shelf at KB Toys next to The Legend of Zelda, Castlevania, or Ghosts and Goblins, all of which were available around the same time, which would grab your interest more? Definitely not Action Fighter. It looks like a magnifying glass looking at a picture of a car, but it's supposed to be the side view mirror on the right-hand side of a car. Just a blank white grid would have made this box look leaps and bounds better. The game itself is fun to play, but the difficulty is incredibly high. I'm guessing the reason is that there are only 5 stages, so Sega didn't want people to beat the game in a single session. Like most Master System games, the color palette is excellent, with many vibrant colors throughout the game. The music is pretty good and doesn't have a lot of the high-pitched music that plagues many of the games on the console. This game features only the PSG sound, so no alternate FM synthesis is available for this one. From the title screen, you can select 1 or 2 players. Each player can enter their name, which will get recorded on the high score table, but there's no battery backup, so your high score will only remain as long as you don't turn off the console. Unlike many games of this era, you can enter pretty long names, so you don't have to abbreviate if your name has 5 letters or more. Also, if your name includes punctuation like exclamation points or the copyright symbol, Action Fighter has you covered too. There are also secret names that you can enter that activate different cheats in the game, like invincibility to bullets or more lives. In this game, you play as a secret agent named Super Rider, similar to James Bond. You'll be given 5 missions to complete, and of course, you're given a license to kill. You'll accomplish your mission by piloting your vehicles that, according to the box, transforms into a dozen different deadly devices. In reality, there are only 3 forms that you can transform into. Before each mission, the game will give you the mission objective. This screen shows you the boss that you'll have to battle at the end of the mission to progress to the next one. I like that the president signs his name as just President. Each level has 3 or more sections to complete. The first section is the driving section. You'll start out as a motorcycle, you'll be able to speed up, slow down, and fire a machine gun. It's not rapid fire, so you'll have to do a lot of tapping or get a turbo controller. Your objective is to collect 4 parts labeled A, B, C, and D in order to transform into an armored car. The car handles the same as the motorcycle, except now you shoot 2 bullets instead of just 1. Now your objective is to find 2 more parts labeled E and F so that you can transform into a supersonic jet. This section plays a lot like Spy Hunter and loops until you've obtained all the parts to transform into the jet. There are a variety of enemies including different types of motorcycles, cars, and helicopters. Motorcycles take a single bullet to kill, while the cars can take more. You'll need to get a special weapon to fire surface-to-air missiles to destroy the helicopter. You'll die if you get hit by a single enemy bullet, or run off the road, run into a barrier, or drive into the water. Enemies, depending on the type and the form of your vehicle, will either destroy you on impact or ping-pong you around the screen, most likely into a barrier. This part is incredibly tough and you'll die a lot. You have to drive lightning fast to get the parts, but you'll need to slow down to take turns and avoid the bombs that the helicopter drops on your position. You'll occasionally run into a Sega truck. You can slow down and enter the back of the truck just like in Spy Hunter. This will give you a weapon upgrade from your machine gun to missiles. Missiles do a lot more damage and pass through enemies, allowing you to take out multiple enemies in a single shot. Entering the Sega truck again will give you a surface-to-air missile that can destroy the helicopter, and entering it again will give you partial invincibility for a short period of time. It will seem like you can die as many times as you want, which is partially true. You'll notice a countdown timer at the bottom of the screen. As this counter decreases, you can die an unlimited amount of times. Each time you die, you'll start a little ways back at a checkpoint. There are tons of checkpoints, so you'll never start very far back, but you will lose some time getting back to the position where you initially died. Once the timer runs out, you have a limited number of lives, and once they run out, it's game over. You do get points for killing enemies, destroying objects in the landscape, and picking up flags. You'll get an extra life for when the timer runs out after getting 10,000 points, and more extra lives when you double that score. Like many early Master System games, there are no continues. This is incredibly frustrating given the difficulty of the game. There really should have been at least a limited number of continues. The levels are long enough that by the time you get to the boss, the timer will be up, so you want to die as little as possible so you can take advantage of the timer for as much as the stage as possible, since you can't game over during that time. Once you transform into the jet fighter, the game proceeds to the next section. This section is a vertically scrolling shooter. It plays like Xevious, where you can shoot flying enemies with your machine gun or missiles, and you have a reticle in front of your ship to drop bombs on ground targets like tanks and boats. I also like that you can destroy non-enemy objects on the ground like buildings or cars just driving on the road. This section is very difficult and sometimes very frustrating as well. First, your control in this section is very floaty, and you don't feel like you ever have complete control over your jet. I've tried with the Master System controller, 3-button Genesis controller, and 6-button Genesis controller, and they all control about the same, so just use the controller of your choice for this game. Second, there are enemies and bullets that are totally invisible. Some enemies and bullets fly underneath the clouds, and you'll find yourself seemingly getting hit by nothing at all. This is incredibly frustrating, especially since enemies shoot bullets randomly, including from off-screen and behind you. This is why you really need to get those sections with a lot of time on the clock so you don't lose a life when this happens to you. The goal of this section is just to get to the end of the area. Enemies are much faster than you, and power-ups appear at random and very seldom. I found that the best way to get through this is to try and avoid enemies as much as possible, since they'll dive bomb you faster than you can dodge when they get close enough. You can pick up flags for extra points, which you really need to get the extra lives before your time runs out. Once you finish this section, you move on to the boss. The boss fight is on a single screen and plays a lot like Jackal on the NES. You'll need to hit the enemies with either bullets or your bombs, depending on the boss, while dodging their bullets. The boss fights were all pretty creative in the patterns of the bosses, and it was my favorite part of the game. For instance, the submarine will submerge to dodge your bombs, the helicopter boss will put your dodging skills to the test, and the tank bosses require precision bombing to hit their weak spots. Once the boss dies, you'll get your next mission, which starts exactly where you left off. This is really cool. After completing Mission 1 in the air, Mission 2 starts off with you still in the jet. You'll fly through the vertically scrolling shooter section, then transform back into the car and complete the driving section next. Then, you'll fight the boss as the car, and then Mission 3 starts as the car and you'll transition to the jet, and so on. The game only features 5 missions, which is fine since the game is very difficult. I spent more time just trying to get past level 1 than I think I have on any other game that I've ever played. It seems like you're always at a disadvantage in terms of speed, durability, and firepower compared to the enemy. First time playing, I died over 100 times on the first level before even getting to the vertically scrolling sections, but somehow I managed to just keep wanting to play and get better at this. While there is a really good variety of enemies, the stage backgrounds are very limited. The driving sections are always in a city with the same style buildings, roads, and grassy areas. The shooting sections include cloud cover, oceans, plains, and what looks like either concrete or ice areas with some buildings and roads on them. Once you've played through Mission 1, you'll have seen all the backgrounds the game has to offer. If you only looked at recorded footage of the game, you wouldn't be able to differentiate one level from the next. I would have liked to have had more variety. Different missions could have taken place in a desert area, or mountains, or snow. There also could have been different types of cities that you drive through as well. They all look like a California generic city. This game is fun, although frustrating at times, and can give you several hours of entertainment if you're up to the challenge. But I could see a lot of people playing this game a few times and turning it off just because of that difficulty curve. They tried to do something unique with this game, and they almost succeeded, if only they kept the difficulty to a manageable level. I've never been able to get past level 3 without using cheats. The difficulty starts high, and it only gets more brutal as the game progresses. I'm also surprised that I couldn't really find people that speedrun this game. Given the design of the driving sections, having to get the parts as quickly as possible, racing the timer, it would seem like a natural game for people to run through. I don't know, maybe the randomness of enemy positions and the randomness of where the parts will appear on the stage, especially in the driving sections, might detract people from trying this. The game is good, but not great, but I would still recommend it if you're looking for some Master System games to try out. If you're looking for a physical copy, a complete in-box copy currently goes for around $15 US, with cartridge-only copies for less than $10. Absolutely worth the price. If you've also played this, let me know what you think of it in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.